Thank you. Ah, yes. Well, these past 2 Sundays, we have been exploring faith and compiling our unique personal faith recipe. And I hope you have your faith recipe card with you, but if not, raise your hand and Willie will make sure that you get one of those cards in your hand. So just raise your hand, keep it up, and he will get to you. And for those watching online, go to our website, unityhartford.org, and in the middle of the home page on the right, you'll see where you can open the document that is the recipe card. You can even download it, and you can start creating your own special recipe for faith. Now, so far, we discussed common items that you might include in your recipe. Items like belief, hope, trust, and spiritual assurance. For many of us, belief is crucial to having faith. And spiritual assurance, well, that's that deep inner knowing. It's an expectancy. And in fact, that might be another ingredient to put on your recipe card, expectancy. And yet, faith can be something of a mystery. In fact, mystery could be another ingredient to add. Not everything about faith is instantly or even eventually understandable. And sometimes we just need to sit in or with the mystery of it all, experiencing perhaps that at some time we will come to a deeper understanding. In all honesty, we deal with mysteries every day of our life. Believe me, there are some things and some people that are truly a mystery to me. Okay. So in dealing with faith, it's permissible. It's okay to say, I don't understand yet. We might also want to include some of our unity spiritual laws and principles, perhaps a few of the 12 spiritual powers. How about strength, which includes courage, wisdom, that includes intuition, love, power, imagination, that includes vision, and even zeal. And that leads me to the trio of P's. Anybody know what the trio of P's are? Persistence, patience, and yes, even peace. Another ingredient that we talked about is desire, a strong desire of your heart. Remember my faith story on August 17th? My deep desire to see without glasses? Desire is so important as it can provide the fuel for us to keep walking in faith. Dr. Emily Cady, in her book, Lessons in Truth, wrote, and I'm paraphrasing a bit here, that a desire of your heart is simply God knocking on the door of your heart, asking you to come alive, to come awake to your deep inner desire. I love that imagery, as it somehow makes it okay for me to have a desire. And the other D word to include in your ingredients could be doubt. We somehow think that if we have faith, we will never doubt. Oh, no, not so. Contrary to popular belief, doubt is not the enemy of faith, but it can be really an essential ingredient of faith. So, I'm going to come down because we talked about coming today with your recipe card filled out. I am under no illusions that you have come with a recipe card filled out. Okay? I've been doing this for a while, I know you. Okay. But I know you've been thinking about it. So, I would very much like you to tell me perhaps maybe one or two of the ingredients that would be on your recipe card when you get around to doing it this week. So, what I'd like you to do is to raise your hand and to tell me a word or two or a sentence, of what you would probably put on your recipe card for faith. Who would like to raise their? Yes. Gratitude and honesty. Yes. And certainly we have that saying, what we appreciate appreciates, right? Kate. Kindness. Yeah. Kindness. Willie.
Evidence, as in faith is the evidence of things not seen.
Ah, there we go. Yes. Yes.
When you have faith in something, then you look for it.
Right. Mm-hmm. You don't wait to see it first, right? It's there. And now our eyes just have to open to it. Yeah. That's that power that we have. We have that power to do that. Yeah. Richard. Justice. Beautiful. Thank you. Justice. Lois.
I find peace and spirit within and listen for the inner voice.
There we go. I find peace and spirit within and listen for that inner voice. That's expectancy, isn't it? I expect, that I'm going to hear. Lynn. Trusting an intuitive heart. Yeah. We know. We sometimes forget. Sure. Trust and forgiveness. Yeah, forgiveness. Not something we like to play with, is it? Very much. Because mostly we need to forgive ourselves. Right? So can be a really important ingredient for your faith recipe. Deborah, you had your hand up. Conscious of when I make assumptions. Now that could say, but isn't that expectancy? Well, not really. Because those assumptions, they could be good assumptions, but oftentimes they're not. So being conscious. And what really, if you were to distill that down for a word or two on your card, might that not be self-awareness? Self-awareness. My minister in New Jersey told me that is the number one thing that we truly need. Self-awareness. Without it, it's hard to walk in faith. It's hard to walk in this lifetime. Yes. Consciousness. Consciousness is self-awareness. Yes. We think it's a big fancy thing, right? Consciousness. But it's self-awareness, or awareness. It's not necessarily self-awareness. It is awareness. Yeah.
I love that. I love awareness and self-awareness, and it also makes me think of authenticity and vulnerability.
Beautiful.
Being willing to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Authenticity and vulnerability. So when we heard that story of Maya Angelou last week, she had to get humble, right? She had to be vulnerable in that situation where she was reading, and she had to keep reading it 7 times until aha. She got that aha. Yes, Catherine. Courage. Oh my goodness, yes. Courage. And Willie, and then Miriam. Yeah. Pardon me? Willing to act. Willingness. So often, we want to have faith, but we're not willing to do what we must do. And that's all those things we talked about: self-awareness, humble, forgive, gratitude, willingness. Maria.
I said being open-minded, and then I'll throw in a couple words I learned yesterday: wonder and curiosity.
Yes. Wonder, is that sitting in the mystery? Okay. Curiosity, am I curious? Or do I just want that quick answer? Oh, I know. I know what God is. Okay. But what about wondering, being curious? I'm going to listen. Did you have your hand up? Pardon me? Belief. And we talked about belief being the foundation. Without belief, how do you get to faith? Right? Belief. Somebody over here? Okay. Willie.
I know I said something.
That's okay. I'm trying to make sure everybody gets a chance.
Is that okay? Is that power? Faith is a power that we human beings have.
That's right.
Okay, and we are unique in that. We should be exercising that power.
Absolutely. Faith is one of our 12 spiritual powers. Okay? And I have told people ad nauseum that faith is one of our 12 spiritual powers. And you know what they say? I don't have enough faith. Okay? That faith is one of the 12 spiritual powers. Okay? And so, but faith is one of the 12 spiritual, and just like all the spiritual powers, it is always there. It's latent. Okay? It's we who have to recognize it and exercise it. Okay? It's latent. It's waiting for us. But until we acknowledge it, until we say yes, until we're willing, we're not going to realize our power. So who else? Anyone else? Yes, Angela.
Just something that Maria said, keeping an open heart and an open mind.
Keeping an open heart and an open mind. So much that we experience in our daily lives encourages us to close our hearts, close our minds. So, are we willing to be vulnerable? Are we willing to open our hearts and minds? Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you for sharing. And I want to tell you a parable. I want to share a parable with you. Now, it's not a Bible parable. It's a modern day parable. Guess what? People are still writing parables. The author is Peter Rollins, and it's from his book, The Unorthodox Heretic. Isn't that a great title? Yeah. So, let me just grab my notes because I want to make sure I get it all for you. Oh, and the author, Peter Rollins, he writes that, he says he writes parables not to change our minds, but to change our hearts. Well, this parable takes place in a world where following the works of Jesus is a subversive and illegal activity. If you are accused of being a follower, you could be arrested, and after a court hearing that would find you guilty, you could be jailed or even put to death. Well, the authorities have closely been following John. They've been doing this for some time, and the prosecution has built up quite the case of evidence against John. The police arrested him, and now the evidence is being brought before the judge. They show photos of John attending Sunday services, of going to religious meetings, speaking at spiritual services, religious events, and participating in some prayer and meditation services. They then present a selection of items that they confiscated from his home. Religious and spiritual books, CDs, videos, and religious and spiritual artifacts. They then add to all of that by displaying many of his poems, essay writings, and journal entries that he has written about his faith. So you would be in trouble, okay? The final damaging piece of evidence is John's Bible that has a lot of underlines and notations in it. Well, John is sitting in silent but absolute fear. He is trying to hold himself back because at times he wants to stand up and say, no, never mind, I don't believe in any of this. You know, he wants to take it all back. Okay? So he wills himself to stay in his seat and to be silent. Even when the judge says to him, do you have anything you want to add? He keeps quiet. So the judge says, okay, we're going to have a recess, and I will look at the evidence, and I'll come back with my verdict. They take John out, and what seems like hours, he's finally brought back into the courtroom. He gets seated in the docket. The judge comes out, and he is a harsh and unyielding man. He looks directly in John's eyes. And he says, of the charges that have been brought forward, I find the accused not guilty. What? John is now filled with confusion and rage, no longer fearful. No. John shouts out, not guilty. What about the poems and all those essays I wrote? Well, the judge replies, well, they simply show that you like to write. But what about the services I spoke at? The Sunday services and prayer vigils I attended and spoke at? Well, the judge replied, well, that's evidence that you're a good speaker and nothing more. It's obviously that you deluded yourself and others, but your foolishness is not enough for a conviction. John shouted, this is madness. It would seem that no evidence would convince you. Not so, replied the judge. The court is indifferent toward your Bible reading and church attendance. It has no concern for worship with words and a pen. Feel free to continue to develop your theology and to paint your pretty pictures of love. We have no interest in such armchair artists who spend their time creating images of a better world. We exist for those who would lay down their brush and pen and even their life in an endeavor to create a better world. So until you challenge the system and become a thorn in our side, until you die to yourself, until then, my friend, you are no enemy of ours. Yeah. So in his notes, he always has notes after his parables, and in his notes, he said that this parable was inspired by a bumper sticker, a car bumper sticker. And it said, if Christianity were illegal, would there be enough evidence to convict you? Great bumper sticker. Well, to me, the question is, are you living your faith? Certainly today we see many who call themselves Christians in name only. They do not truly follow the teachings of Jesus, but created a strange type of Christianity where Jesus exists in songs and TV ads, but not in their lives, not emulating Jesus in their lives. It is, to me, it's hypocrisy at its worst. And to me, it's also troubling, maybe perhaps to many of you. But then what about us? What about us Unity folks? What do we believe? Where do we place our faith? What or who is our God? And what is our faith recipe cooking up? Are we, too, living in the shallows, wiggling our toes at the ocean's end, in the shallows, creating just little ripples, just little ripples? Or are we willing to dive into the deep waters? What about doing a cannonball jump into the deep waters and creating huge waves? Yeah. Sure, there are Unity people who want to live in the shallows. They like the Unity message and songs and affirmations. All of this fills them with a warm, cozy feeling. And that is wonderful. And that, then, is the totality of their faith, of their living faith. It exists here in this building and doesn't really find a place in their everyday life. These past 3 weeks have been devoted to the question of faith. And your willingness could provide you with the ability to dive deep, to create waves, and to swim far and wide. The author, in his notes, has these questions. What if people of faith, no matter what faith, really lived a life that reflected the subversive and radical message of love, that gives a voice to the voiceless and a place to those who are displaced? What if people of faith were to stand up against the systematic oppression perpetrated by those in power? Would there be enough evidence against them? Well, once we create, because I know you're all going to do it this week, once we create our recipe, our faith recipe card, what will you do with it? Will you put it in your recipe box? Will you use it for that spiritual book that you bought and one day will read? Will you will you use it as a coaster? There's another good use for it. Yeah. Well, my desire for all of us is that we truly take the time and the effort to define our living faith, a faith that challenges ourselves and our system, a faith that is demanding and insistent and sticks with us no matter where we go or what we do, a faith that we embody and that demandingly calls us to our best self and to creating a world that works for everyone. This week, take some time to dive deep, to do that cannonball jump into the deep waters and create lots and lots of waves. This week, complete that recipe and see what you can cook up, not just for yourself, but for everyone. Happy Labor Day and namaste.